I forgot. I don't want to wrinkle my clothes. They're uncomfortable. I'm only going down the street. I'm a good driver, so I'm not worried about it. That is what airbags are for, so I don't need it. What are all these? These are excuses that are used by motorists who choose not to wear their seatbelts. Each year, more than 30,000 Americans are killed in motor vehicle crashes. The carnage on our roadways has far eclipsed all of the wars in our nation combined. Today, I will share with you why it is important to buckle up. First, we'll talk about some seatbelt facts. Second, we will discuss why it's important to wear seatbelts. And finally, we will go over reasons you should wear it correctly. Much of the information I'm going to share with you today comes from the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, short for NHTSA. Let's begin with some facts about the seatbelt. At 50 miles per hour, a backseat passenger of average weight not wearing a seatbelt will fly forward with a force of 3,000 pounds. If you're in an accident and you're not buckled in, you can become a projectile that lands on a child or other passengers, causing injuries or death. It is also possible for people in the front seat to land in the back seat during an accident. Seatbelts have several functions. They prevent passengers from being thrown from the vehicle. They reduce the risk of passengers being injured by colliding with parts of the interior of the vehicle or other passengers when there is an abrupt stop. Seatbelts also hold you in position, which allows airbags to be most beneficial in the event of an accident. If you're ever involved in an accident not wearing a seatbelt, your chances of dying are far greater than if you're wearing them. Why is it important to wear seatbelts? Plainly put, it's not just a good idea, it's the law. The picture that you see here is an example of what actually happens during a crash. Whenever there's a vehicle accident, there are actually two collisions. The first is when a vehicle impacts a solid object. After impact, whoever's riding the vehicle will continue moving at the original speed. Whoever's riding the vehicle without a seatbelt, when it comes to an abrupt stop, this is exactly what happens. This could be, they will collide with other parts of the interior of the vehicle. This could be the steering wheel, the dashboard, into other passengers, and in this case, the windshield. There is also a possibility of passengers being ejected from the vehicle. According to the NHTSA, 73% of passengers that are thrown from a vehicle in an accident are killed. The bottom line is when the vehicle comes to a sudden stop, passengers who are not wearing a seatbelt don't. The purpose of wearing a seatbelt is to prevent the second collision. Although airbags provide added protection, they are not a substitute for seatbelts. In most vehicles, airbags only inflate during frontal crashes. They can't save you in rear side crashes and rollovers. Seatbelts can. Lap shoulder belt systems reduce the risk of fatality and serious injury by 50% when worn correctly. Not wearing a seatbelt correctly is just the same as not wearing one at all. In some situations, not properly wearing a seatbelt could potentially cause more injuries than the crash itself. You must wear them correctly so that they can distribute the shock of the crash over a larger part of the body, which creates a less chance of an acute injury. Take a look at this picture. It shows how a seatbelt is worn correctly. Notice that the belt is not twisted and it is worn close to the body. The belt can only do its job properly in a crash if it is snug to the user's body. The shoulder belt lies across the chest and over the shoulder away from the neck and face. The lap belt should be adjusted so that it lies low across the hips and not the stomach. The reason for this is because in an accident, the hip bones can safely handle more force than your internal organs. Do not leave any slack in the belt, and under no circumstances should you use two people for one belt. It's a bad idea to put any accessories on a seatbelt just for the sake of comfort. Repositioning the shoulder harness could severely compromise the protective capability of the seatbelt and increase the chance of serious injury in a crash. It has been proven that seatbelts are our first line of defense. In closing, we have discovered why it is important to buckle up. Initially, we talked about some seatbelt facts. Next, we discussed why it's important to wear seatbelts. And lastly, we went over reasons that you should wear it correctly. The next time that you get into a vehicle, you got to ask yourself, after an accident, would you rather be confined to a seatbelt, a coffin, or a wheelchair? Personally, the choice is obvious. Thank you.